An empire without a written language conquered over 6 million people across 2.5 million square kilometers of the world's most dangerous terrain. They built roads that still stand after 500 years. Roads carved into mountainsides so high that the air itself becomes thin enough to kill you. How did they do it? The Inca didn't just build an empire, they rewrote what was humanly possible. The Inca Empire, Tawantinsuyu, meaning the four parts together, stretched from the frozen peaks of the Andes to the scalding deserts below, defying every law of geography and challenging what we thought ancient civilizations could achieve. This wasn't a small kingdom. This was a superpower that rivaled Rome in its ambition and sophistication, yet remained almost completely unknown to the outside world until conquistadors arrived. Here's what's mind-blowing. The Inca constructed buildings so precisely that you cannot fit a single piece of paper between stone blocks without using any mortar. Modern construction companies today can't match that precision. Yet the Inca did this on mountainsides at altitudes where oxygen is scarce and breathing becomes a struggle. The Inca didn't conquer the mountains through brute force. They became one with them, understanding the terrain so deeply that they could transform vertical wilderness into thriving cities, agricultural systems, and trade networks. They turned the impossible into the ordinary, the improbable into the inevitable. The Inca road system, the Capac Ñan, is considered one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. This wasn't a simple path. It's a 40,000-kilometer network of roads spanning deserts, jungles, and mountains so steep that modern hikers need oxygen tanks just to survive them. And the Inca built this without any motorized equipment, without computers, without anything except human ingenuity and an unshakable belief in their divine destiny. But here's the paradox that historians still can't fully explain. How did an empire with no written language manage the administration of millions of people? How did they coordinate construction projects that rival modern engineering? How did they maintain control across territories so vast that a messenger on foot would take months to travel from one end to the other? The answer lies in a system so ingenious, so perfectly designed, that even today, after 500 years of conquest, colonization, and attempted erasure, the Inca's legacy still stands. Their roads still carry travelers. Their terraces still grow crops. Their stones still align with the sun and stars as if touched by the gods themselves. In this documentary, we're going to uncover the secrets behind the most organized empire in pre-Columbian history. We'll explore how they engineered the impossible, how they unified diverse peoples under one vision, and how they created a civilization so advanced that it took Spanish conquistadors with disease and weaponry, not military superiority, to bring them down. But before we dive deeper, you need to understand this. The Inca didn't just build stones and roads. They built a philosophy, a system, a way of life that showed the world what human beings could accomplish when unified under a common purpose. And that story is about to change how you see ancient civilizations forever. Welcome to the rise and fall of the Inca Empire, a civilization that rose above the clouds and proved that with vision, engineering, and unwavering determination, even the most impossible dreams could become stone, steel, and timeless legacy. Before the Inca Empire conquered an entire continent, they were nobodies. A small mountain tribe struggling to survive in the Sacred Valley, surrounded by enemies with almost no resources. But then, something changed. One man, Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, looked at the fragmented, chaotic territories surrounding him and made a decision that would reshape South America forever. The Inca Empire didn't exist from the beginning of time. The Inca people emerged in the 12th century as a minor group among dozens of competing civilizations in the Andes. Cusco, their capital, was just another mountain settlement. Nothing special, nothing exceptional. But by 1438, everything changed. Pachacuti took control, and within just a few generations he transformed the Inca from a local power into the largest empire South America had ever seen. Here's what's incredible. Pachacuti didn't just conquer territory through warfare. He was a visionary, a strategic genius who understood something crucial. You don't build a lasting empire through force alone. You build it through infrastructure, through connection, through shared identity. He created the Capac Nyan road system, the Quipu recording system, and a bureaucratic structure so efficient that it became a model for how governments could function. The expansion was relentless. Pachacuti conquered the Chancay, the Chincha, the Moche, civilizations with their own histories, their own cultures, their own pride. But instead of destroying them, the Inca did something brilliant. They integrated them. They preserved local traditions while demanding loyalty to Cusco. They created a system where conquered peoples felt part of something greater, rather than oppressed by foreign rulers. But here's the question that confuses historians. How did the Inca maintain control over such vast distances? Before the age of telecommunications, before horses, before any modern technology, how did a central government in Cusco command an empire that stretched from what is now Colombia to Chile? The answer: an engineering and administrative marvel so sophisticated that even today, we're still uncovering its secrets. The Inca believed they had a divine destiny, that Inti, the sun god, had chosen them to unite the scattered peoples of South America. This wasn't just religious belief. It was the foundation of their entire political system. Every Inca ruler, the Sapa Inca, was considered the direct descendant of the sun, a living god on earth. This gave them unprecedented authority and justified their expansionist ambitions in the eyes of their people. Each Inca ruler pushed the boundaries further. Tupac Inca Yupanqui, Pachacuti's son, expanded the empire into the Amazon jungle and the Atacama Desert. He conquered territories so vast that his military campaigns lasted years, taking him across terrains that should have been impassable. Yet the Inca persisted, adapting their tactics to every environment, proving that their success was no accident. It was the result of brilliant strategy and unwavering determination. By the time the Spanish arrived in 1532, the Inca Empire stretched 4,000 kilometers from north to south, encompassing over 12 million people speaking hundreds of different languages. It was the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas, a civilization that had achieved in just 300 years what took other empires centuries to accomplish. The speed of their rise was almost as remarkable as the scale of their achievement. But rapid expansion came with a cost. Internal divisions began to form. The empire grew so vast that cracks appeared in the foundation. When the Spanish arrived, they didn't just face military opposition. They walked into a civilization already fractured by civil war, succession disputes, and regional tensions. And that instability would become their greatest weakness. The Inca Empire rose from humble origins in the Sacred Valley to become the most powerful civilization South America had ever known, all within a few centuries. Their story is one of visionary leadership, strategic brilliance, and an unshakable belief in their divine destiny. But every empire has breaking points, and the Incas were about to be tested in ways they never imagined. Imagine building a highway system 40,000 kilometers long, longer than the Earth's circumference, without machinery, without vehicles, and without any maps beyond what you could see from a mountain peak. That's exactly what the Inca did. The Capac Nyan, the Great Road, is one of humanity's most breathtaking engineering achievements, and yet most people have never heard of it. But when you understand what this road system actually is, you'll understand why the Inca Empire was truly unstoppable. The Capac Nyan wasn't a single road. It was a network, a system connecting every corner of the Inca Empire from what is now Colombia to Chile. This wasn't a dirt path or a simple trail. The Inca carved roads into mountainsides at altitudes of 4,200 meters, where the air has 60% less oxygen than at sea level, where temperatures drop below freezing at night, where a single misstep means falling into a gorge with no bottom. And yet, the Inca built here, perfectly, precisely, with stone so fitted together that 500 years later, these roads still stand. Here's what will blow your mind. The Inca built suspension bridges made entirely of woven grass cables, not rope, grass, woven together so tightly and so expertly that they could support the weight of entire caravans and armies crossing deep gorges. Some of these bridges hung over chasms 50 meters deep. Every year, the Inca would replace the grass cables before they degraded, a ritual that some indigenous communities still perform today. That's not just engineering, that's a commitment to infrastructure that rivals anything the Roman Empire ever built. The Inca didn't just throw roads on the landscape, they engineered them. Drainage systems were built into the roads to prevent water damage. The roads were graded at perfect angles to prevent erosion. Steps were carved into steep sections so travelers could climb safely. Way stations were placed at strategic intervals, every day's journey apart, providing shelter, food, and fresh llamas for travelers. The level of planning, the attention to detail, the foresight, it all points to a civilization that thought in terms of systems and infrastructure centuries before the Western world even invented the term. But here's the real mystery. How did the Inca achieve this without the wheel? Without horses? Without blast powder to break through rock? The answer reveals something profound about Inca ingenuity. They used water, flowing water to soften stone, making it easier to carve. They used leverage systems with wooden beams and stone fulcrums. They understood the principles of physics intuitively, without formulas or modern tools. They had something better than technology. They had the problem-solving brilliance and the willingness to invest generations in a single project. Imagine the vision it took to conceive of this project. An Inca emperor looks out at thousands of miles of impossible terrain and says, "We will connect it all. Every mountain, every valley, every people. Not for conquest alone, but to bind an empire together, to allow goods to flow, to allow armies to move, to allow communication across distances that would normally isolate communities from each other." The Capac Ñan wasn't just infrastructure, it was the circulatory system of the Inca Empire, pumping blood, resources, and unity through every territory they controlled. Modern engineers studying the Capac Ñan have concluded that it would be incredibly expensive and difficult to build this network even with 21st century technology. Yet the Inca built it with stone tools and human labor. They built it so well that sections of it are still used today. Hikers, villagers, and traders still walk these ancient pathways. Archaeologists have found that the Inca road system influenced infrastructure development in Spanish colonial times and beyond. The impact of this single engineering achievement rippled through centuries. But the Capac Ñan was more than just roads and bridges. It was a statement of power, a declaration that the Inca could overcome any obstacle, master any terrain, and connect any distance. And this network of roads, this arteries of the empire, would become both the Incas' greatest strength, and, when the Spanish came, their greatest vulnerability. Because those same roads that united the empire also became highways for conquest. And that story is one of the most dramatic moments in human history. The Capac Ñan represents the pinnacle of Inca engineering and vision, a 40,000-kilometer network of roads that connected an empire spanning millions of people across the most challenging terrain on Earth. It stands as proof that the Inca weren't just conquerors or administrators. They were visionaries who understood that true power comes from connection, infrastructure, and the ability to move resources, people, and ideas across impossible distances. The roads built by the Inca are still here, still functional, still commanding awe from those who walk them. The Inca Empire controlled 12 million people across 2.5 million square kilometers without a single written word. No alphabet, no paper documents, no libraries. Yet they managed taxes, military deployments, census data, and agricultural production with perfect accuracy. How is that even possible? The answer lies in one of history's most ingenious inventions, the Quipu. And when you understand what the Quipu actually is, you'll realize the Inca weren't just administrators. They were geniuses. The Quipu, pronounced Quipu, is a recording device made of knotted cords. That's it. Colored strings with knots tied in specific patterns, but this simple tool could record numbers, census data, dates, locations, and even narrative information with such precision that modern computers have struggled to fully decode the system. The Inca used different colored cords for different categories: white for silver, yellow for gold, red for soldiers, black for prisoners. Each knot position and style represented a specific number. It was a three-dimensional database, thousands of years before computers existed. Here's what will astound you. With the Quipu system, Inca administrators could account for every grain of food in storage, every textile produced, every able-bodied male available for military service, and every tribute payment owed by conquered territories. A single official could manage an entire province's resources with just a few knotted cords. Imagine managing a modern city's infrastructure, budget, and resources with just a piece of rope. That's essentially what the Inca did, and they did it flawlessly for over 300 years. The level of organization was so complete that Spanish conquistadors couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Quipu system was the backbone of Inca taxation and redistribution. Here's how it worked. Local administrators would record tributes in their province on quipus. Then, specialized runners, the chasquis, would carry these knotted records at sprint pace along the Capacñan, relaying them from station to station until they reached Cusco. Cusco would have quipus from hundreds of provinces, creating a master record of the entire empire's resources. Then, the Sapa Inca could redistribute resources based on need. If one region had famine, resources would flow from abundance to scarcity. The system was both a counting mechanism and socialist redistribution tool. But here's the part that amazes scholars. The Quipu system recorded more than just numbers. Archaeological evidence suggests that some quipus encoded narrative information, stories, historical records, even administrative instructions. We've only decoded about 10% of what the Quipu system could communicate. Scientists are still using supercomputers to analyze Quipu patterns, and they keep discovering new layers of complexity. What if there was an entire literary tradition encoded in knotted cords that we've lost forever? What knowledge did the Spanish conquistadors destroy when they burned thousands of quipus? Imagine being an Inca administrator. Every morning, you review the quipus from your province. You see exactly how many llamas are in each district. You see which territories have surplus and which face shortages. You see which warriors are healthy, which are injured, which have died. All of this information, this complex interwoven data, exists in knots on colored string. You don't need to read. You don't need to write. You understand the language of the Quipu as fluently as we understand written words. The Inca created a data system that transcended the need for written language. Modern researchers have compared the Quipu system to binary code, the ones and zeros that power modern computers. Because at its core, the Quipu was a binary system. Knots or no knots, different colors, different positions. The Inca had invented, thousands of years early, a computational system. They were thinking in algorithmic patterns centuries before algorithms were named or formalized. They weren't primitive. They were thinking in ways that anticipated modern data science. The Quipu system represented the Inca's ability to manage complexity on a continental scale. With this system, they could track everything, control everything, and ensure that their vast empire functioned like a single organism. But this same system, this absolute control, this complete accounting, also made them vulnerable. Because when the Spanish arrived and began dismantling Inca administration, they targeted the quipus. They burned them. They destroyed records. They tried to erase the knowledge. And in doing so, they erased an entire way of knowing, an entire intellectual tradition that may never be fully recovered. That story of cultural destruction is about to unfold before your eyes. The Quipu represents the pinnacle of Inca administrative genius. A recording system so sophisticated that it managed an empire of 12 million people with zero written language. It was a tool of governance, taxation, census, and knowledge preservation all in one. The Inca didn't need to write because they had invented something arguably better, a system of knotted cords that could encode data, numbers, and possibly narratives with mathematical precision. Today, as scientists continue to decode the Quipu system, we're uncovering proof that the Inca were not just administrators. They were visionary thinkers who solved the problem of managing empire in ways that we're still learning to appreciate. The Inca faced an impossible problem. How do you feed 12 million people on a mountain range where the soil is thin, the altitude is extreme, and farming should be impossible? Most civilizations would have failed. They would have moved to flatter, more fertile land. But the Inca didn't retreat. They innovated. They created an agricultural system so advanced that modern scientists are still studying it today. And the techniques they invented, some of them still work better than modern farming methods. This is the story of how the Inca turned mountains into bread baskets. The Inca built over 1 million hectares of agricultural terraces, step-by-step fields carved into mountainsides, each one perfectly engineered to prevent soil erosion and maximize water retention. These weren't simple steps. Each terrace had a retaining wall constructed with the same precision as their temples. Drainage channels guided water across the terraces. Soil was built up layer by layer, creating fertile ground where none naturally existed. The engineering required to build these terraces would be challenging even with modern equipment. The Inca did it with stone tools and human labor, and the terraces they built 500 years ago are still productive today. Here's what will shock you. The Inca domesticated over 4,000 varieties of potatoes. Not just a few types, thousands. Different potatoes for different altitudes, different climates, different storage times. They developed quinoa, which is a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. They grew maize, beans, peppers, and coca plants. Each crop was adapted to specific altitude zones. The level of agricultural knowledge, the understanding of genetics and adaptation, proved that the Inca were not just farmers. They were scientists conducting 500-year-long experiments in crop development. The Inca understood something crucial. Different crops grow at different elevations. So they created vertical agriculture zones. At high altitude, they grew potatoes and freeze-dried them into chuño, a preserved food that could last for years. At mid-altitude, they grew maize and quinoa. At lower elevations in the valleys, they grew coca and other tropical crops. A single Inca family could be part of this system, owning land in multiple zones, ensuring food security across all seasons and all circumstances. It was genius resource management based on profound understanding of ecology and climate. But here's the real marvel. The Inca built storage facilities, vast warehouses called colcas that could preserve food for years. These weren't just pits in the ground. They were engineered structures with ventilation systems that maintained perfect humidity and temperature. Archaeologists have found preserved foods in Inca storage facilities dating back centuries. The Inca had essentially invented food preservation technology centuries before refrigeration was even conceived. They understood airflow, humidity control, and the science of preservation intuitively, through trial and error over generations. Imagine being an Inca emperor standing on a mountaintop. You look at your vast empire, millions of people depending on you for survival. You understand that farming on mountains is nearly impossible, yet you have no choice. You make a decision. Every mountain will become a farm. Every terrace will produce food. Every storm will be captured and channeled to crops. You initiate a project that will take generations to complete. You know you might not live to see its full realization, but you do it anyway, because you understand that feeding your people is the foundation of your power. The Inca agricultural system produced such abundance that they could afford to have a standing army, a large bureaucracy, and still have enough surplus to redistribute to people in times of famine. This redistribution, called the Mita system, meant that no one starved. If one region faced drought, resources flowed from other regions. If one area had plague or disaster, the empire ensured survival. This was a civilization that achieved something modern countries still struggle with: the complete elimination of famine through rational resource management and infrastructure planning. The agricultural innovations of the Inca represent the pinnacle of pre-industrial food production. They fed more people with less environmental degradation than most modern agricultural systems achieve today. Their terraces prevented erosion. Their crop diversity ensured genetic resilience. Their storage systems meant no waste. It was sustainability avant la lettre. But when the Spanish arrived, they didn't understand this system. They tore apart the terrace system. They destroyed the storage facilities. They disrupted the Mita distribution network. And in doing so, they created one of history's greatest ecological and humanitarian disasters. But that's a story for another part of our journey. The Inca agricultural system stands as proof that they weren't just empire builders. They were environmental engineers and food scientists. Through terracing, crop domestication, water management, and storage innovation, they transformed mountains into productive landscapes that fed millions. The Inca didn't conquer nature. They partnered with it, understanding its rules and working within them to achieve abundance. Their agricultural legacy continues today. Many of their crops now feed billions of people worldwide, and their techniques are being revived as modern science recognizes their superiority for sustainable food production. The Inca Empire was built on a fundamental belief. The Sapa Inca, the ruler, was not a man. He was a god, a direct descendant of Inti, the sun god himself. This wasn't just religious mythology. This belief was the foundation of Inca power, Inca authority, and Inca governance. When you understand how deeply the Inca wove spirituality into every aspect of their empire, you'll see why they could command absolute obedience from millions of people across impossible distances. Spirituality wasn't separate from politics, it was politics. The Inca worldview was fundamentally different from Western thinking. They didn't see nature as something separate from the spiritual realm. Mountains were alive. They were apus, mountain spirits that guided and protected the Inca people. The sun, Inti, wasn't just a celestial body, it was the ultimate authority, the source of all life and power. Every major Inca monument, every temple, every sacred site was positioned with astronomical precision to align with solar events, the solstices, the equinoxes, the movements of constellations. The Inca didn't just build cities, they built cosmic maps in stone. The Inca understood something profound. Landscape itself could be spiritualized. Sacred mountains weren't just geological features, they were ancestors, protectors, deities. The lines connecting sacred sites, called seques, formed a cosmic geography that only the Inca fully understood. Cusco itself was built in the shape of a puma, with each part of the city aligned to specific astronomical points and spiritual principles. The entire empire was a mandala, a geometric expression of cosmic order. When you walked through an Inca city, you weren't just moving through space, you were moving through theology, through cosmic meaning. Here's what reveals the sophistication of Inca spirituality. They understood that belief systems could be used to unify diverse peoples. When the Inca conquered a new territory, they didn't destroy the local gods. Instead, they incorporated them into the Inca spiritual hierarchy. Local deities became aspects of the greater Inca cosmology. This wasn't tolerance, it was genius governance. By respecting local spirituality while positioning Inti at the center, the Inca created a spiritual system that could absorb dozens of different cultures. People didn't feel oppressed. They felt part of something greater, something cosmic, something divine. The Inti Raymi festival, the celebration of the sun god, was one of the most elaborate ceremonies in the ancient world. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Cusco for weeks of ceremonies, sacrifices, and celebrations. The Sapa Inca would make offerings to the sun, ensuring its continued journey across the sky. Priests would read omens and animal entrails. They would observe the flight of condors. They would interpret celestial events. Every action was guided by spiritual consultation. Every major decision, warfare, agriculture, construction, was preceded by ritual to ensure divine approval. The Inca weren't just rulers. They were intermediaries between the human and divine realms. But here's what disturbs modern scholars. The Inca practiced human sacrifice. Young people, often children, would be taken to sacred mountain peaks and offered to the gods during times of crisis or celebration. These weren't brutal killings, they were sacred rituals, an honor for the chosen ones. Archaeology has found frozen mummies of sacrifice victims on high mountain peaks, perfectly preserved for centuries. The question isn't whether they did it, but why. What did the Inca understand about sacrifice, spirituality, and the maintenance of cosmic order that made this practice seem not just acceptable, but essential to survival? The Inca preserved their ancestors. They mummified them and kept them in sacred chambers within Cusco itself. During festivals, they would bring out the mummies of dead emperors, dress them in fine clothing, and parade them through the streets. The dead weren't gone, they were present, honored, consulted. This practice scandalized Spanish conquistadors, but it reveals something essential about Inca spirituality. Death was not an ending. It was a transformation, a continuation of relationship across the boundary between life and death. The spiritual system of the Inca was so powerful that it convinced millions of people to accept Inca rule as divinely ordained. Resistance seemed not just politically futile, but spiritually wrong. But when the Spanish arrived with a different god, a different spiritual system, something unprecedented happened. For the first time, the Inca spiritual foundation faced a competing claim to divine authority. And that conflict, that collision of world views, that struggle for spiritual supremacy, would reshape the entire continent. The fall of the Inca Empire wasn't just a military conquest. It was a spiritual crisis that would define centuries to come. The spiritual and ritual foundation of the Inca Empire reveals a civilization that understood power operates on multiple levels: material, political, and spiritual. Through elaborate ceremonies, astronomical alignment, and a comprehensive cosmology that incorporated diverse peoples and beliefs, the Inca created an empire that functioned as a unified spiritual organism. Machu Picchu, the temples of Cusco, the sacred sites scattered across the empire. All of these are expressions of Inca spirituality, attempts to align human society with cosmic order. The Inca didn't separate religion from governance. They understood them as the same force, the same source of power. In 1532, everything changed. Francisco Pizarro arrived with 168 men, just 168, against an empire of 12 million. How did this happen? How did the most powerful civilization in South America fall to a handful of Spanish conquistadors? The answer isn't what you think. It wasn't Spanish superiority. It was timing, disease, and an empire already breaking from within. When the Spanish arrived, the Inca Empire was tearing itself apart. Huáscar and Atahualpa, brothers, sons of the previous Sapa Inca, were locked in a brutal civil war for control. Entire provinces were divided in loyalty. The unity that had held 12 million people together was fractured. Pizarro walked into an empire already wounded, already fighting itself. He didn't conquer the Inca. He exploited their division. He allied with one faction against another, turning Inca against Inca. Here's what's devastating. Disease killed more Inca than Spanish steel ever could. Smallpox, measles, influenza, diseases the Spanish carried unknowingly, spread through Inca populations with terrifying speed. People had no immunity. Entire villages were wiped out. When Spanish soldiers entered Inca cities, they found them already decimated, their people weakened and dying. The Incas' greatest enemy wasn't the conquistador. It was the invisible killer they couldn't fight. Atahualpa was captured at Cajamarca in 1532. Pizarro took him hostage and demanded a ransom, a room filled with gold and silver. The Inca paid. Gold and treasure flowed from across the empire. But Pizarro executed Atahualpa anyway. He murdered the Sapa Inca, the living god, the spiritual center of the empire. This act shattered something beyond politics. It shattered faith itself. If the god emperor could be killed by foreigners, what did that mean about Inca spirituality? What did it mean about the cosmic order? But here's the puzzle historians still grapple with. Why didn't the Inca use their superior numbers to crush the Spanish? They could have, millions against hundreds, yet they didn't. Was it the horses, the steel, the firearms, or was it something deeper? A spiritual crisis, a loss of faith in their divine destiny, a moment of paralysis when their entire worldview collapsed. The Inca Empire fell not in a glorious last stand, but in confusion, division, and spiritual disorientation. The Spanish systematically destroyed Inca culture. They burned quipus, thousands of knotted records containing centuries of knowledge. They melted down golden temples into ingots. They converted sacred sites into churches. But they couldn't destroy everything. The roads remained, the terraces remained, the mountains remained, And in the mountains, pockets of Inca resistance persisted for decades, refusing to accept Spanish rule, preserving memories of the empire that was. Hidden in the clouds of the mountains, it was abandoned, preserved perfectly like a time capsule, until archaeologists rediscovered it centuries later. This sacred city, this jewel of Inca engineering, survived because it was remote, because it was sacred, because the Spanish never reached it. Its survival is a metaphor. The Spanish conquered the empire, but they couldn't conquer the mountains themselves. The fall of the Inca Empire represents one of history's most devastating moments. The collision of two worlds, the triumph of disease over civilization, the erasure of an entire way of knowing. But the Inca didn't disappear. Millions of people today are descendants of the Inca. They speak Quechua, the language of the empire. They farm the terraces their ancestors built. They preserve traditions that survived 500 years of colonization. The Inca Empire fell, but the Inca people endured. And that endurance is a story of resilience that continues today. The Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire wasn't inevitable. It was a perfect storm of civil war, disease, spiritual crisis, and technological difference. But from the ashes of empire rose something that the Spanish couldn't destroy: the memory, the culture, the resilience of the Inca people. Today, in the mountains where Pachacuti once unified millions, their descendants continue the legacy. The Inca Empire fell in 1532, but the Inca people never did. Today, 10 million descendants speak Quechua, the language of the empire. They farm the terraces their ancestors built. They walk the roads Pachacuti created. The Spanish conquered an empire, but they couldn't erase a civilization. After conquest, the Spanish tried to destroy Inca culture. They burned Quipus, melted gold temples, and converted sacred sites into churches. Yet something survived. The mountains remained. The knowledge remained. The people remained. In villages across Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, Inca traditions persisted. Hidden, adapted, but never broken. Here's what's remarkable. The agricultural systems the Inca built still work. Modern farmers use the same terracing techniques. The same crops grow at the same altitudes. Scientists study Inca methods to solve 21st century problems of sustainability and food security. The Inca didn't just build an empire. They built knowledge that transcends time. Machu Picchu remained hidden for 400 years until Hiram Bingham found it in 1911. This sacred city, perfectly preserved, revealed to the world what the Inca had achieved. Visitors today walk the same stone streets, climb the same terraces, and stand in awe of engineering that rivals modern construction. The site became a symbol, proof that the Inca were more advanced than colonizers ever believed. Modern researchers are still decoding Quipus, still discovering new Inca sites, still uncovering layers of sophistication in their mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. We haven't finished understanding the Inca. Perhaps we never will. Each discovery reveals how much knowledge was lost, how much genius the Spanish destroyed, how much we still have to learn. In Cusco today, Spanish colonial buildings stand on top of perfectly fitted Inca stonework. The Inca foundations are stronger. They're more precise, they've lasted longer. Symbolically, this says everything. Spanish conquest sits on top of Inca achievement. You can't escape it, you can't ignore it. The Inca are literally and figuratively the foundation of the Andes. Every festival in Peru honoring Inca heritage, every young person learning Quechua, every farmer using ancestral techniques is an act of resistance and remembrance. The Inca Empire fell, but Inca civilization continues. Not in gold or monuments alone, but in the people, the language, the knowledge, the spirit. From the Sacred Valley to the peaks of Machu Picchu, the Inca legacy endures. An empire that rose from humble origins to unite millions across impossible terrain, that fell to conquest but never to erasure, lives on in the mountains, in the people, and in our growing understanding of what human beings can achieve. The Inca didn't just build roads above the clouds, they built a civilization that would outlast empires. The Inca Empire fell 500 years ago, yet its influence just keeps growing. Every time you eat a potato, you're eating an Inca invention. Quinoa, corn, tomatoes, Inca crops now feed billions of people globally. The civilization that the Spanish tried to erase ended up feeding the world. Inca agricultural innovation transformed global food security. Before the Inca, Europe, Asia, and Africa had no potatoes. Today, potatoes are the world's fourth largest food crop. Quinoa, once sacred to the Inca, is now a global superfood. The crops that sustained 12 million people now sustain billions. The Inca's agricultural genius echoes through centuries. Modern scientists are reverse engineering Inca farming techniques to solve 21st century problems. Terracing methods prevent erosion. Crop diversity builds resilience against disease. Water management systems inspire sustainable agriculture. The Inca solved problems that we're only now beginning to understand we have. Machu Picchu attracts over 1 million visitors annually, making it one of the world's most visited archaeological sites. Each visitor stands in awe of engineering perfection, astronomy alignment, and architectural beauty. Machu Picchu isn't just a monument, it's a living testimony to what the Inca achieved. We're still discovering Inca sites using satellite technology and LiDAR. Entire cities, hidden for centuries beneath jungle canopy, are being revealed. How many more secrets does the Inca civilization still hold? How much more knowledge was lost that we may never recover? In universities worldwide, students study Quechua language and Inca history. Young people reclaim their heritage. Indigenous communities preserve traditions. The Inca aren't ancient history. They're living culture, evolving, adapting, surviving. Every act of cultural preservation is victory over erasure. DNA studies show Inca ancestry in millions of people across South America and beyond. The Inca didn't disappear. They merged, survived, and their bloodline continues. Genetically, culturally, spiritually, the Inca legacy persists in the mountains they once ruled. From the sacred valley to the peaks above clouds, from ancient roads to modern hearts and minds, the Inca Empire's legacy endures. They built more than stones and roads. They built a vision of what civilization could be. That vision continues to inspire, to feed, to teach. The Inca didn't just rise above the clouds, they rose above time itself.